You're listening to the Hidden Killers podcast.
This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Bruschi.
Jennifer Coffindaffer is joining us to discuss Bryan Kohberger, a very dapper Kohberger that we saw in court earlier in the week in a suit and tie and a smirk on his face. Jennifer, what'd you make of the new, more dapper version of Kohberger?
Well, it was a smart move by the defense to certainly let the public see him all dressed up in his Sunday's best. It's unusual. Mm-hmm. I can't remember a time, certainly off the top of my head, for a hearing that I have seen that allowed. Normally, you always see them in their jail garb and oftentimes handcuffed, especially with a violent offender type prosecution. So, I think the judge allowed this, and I think the judge is certainly wanting to be very impartial and provide as much opportunity as possible for the defense to have their client look good.
Are they overstepping? Because it seems odd as well to see someone in a hearing like this being dressed up like that. I know there's a lot of concern about the gag order, and of course there's the talk about the media coverage, and it's overstepping in some places. And a lot of it is more so YouTubers that are going off the deep end. I think most of us are reporting on it fairly responsibly, and it's just facts are facts, and the facts don't look that good in reality. So affording him kind of these extra little niceties, if you will, is that appropriate? Is that needed? Is it just, or is it the courts really trying to do everything they can to look as impartial as possible?
I think it's the latter. I really believe, as an example, for the judge to allow two expert witnesses, not just one expert witness, but two expert witnesses at a hearing, really just regarding media, when the prosecution is in the same court as the defense on this. So obviously they're fighting the Goncalveses as well as the media coalition, but they were in step with each other. Mm-hmm. So typically the judge, pays attention to that. I don't think we were ever going to see a change in this ruling. Mm-hmm. I don't think that this district judge is going to overstep the determinations made by the magistrate judge. Mm-hmm. I think this was sort of overkill and a huge, huge monetary expense, afforded to the defense. Mm-hmm. And I was very surprised to see. I was surprised to see this. I was surprised to see two of them. I was surprised to see him in a suit. I see that this court is definitely giving allowances to Mr. Kohberger. But I could tell also, did you catch where the judge got a little impatient? Mm-hmm. When the defense said, okay, we need to call our next witness.
Yeah.
And he says, how long is that going to take? And they said, 15 minutes, Judge, 15 minutes,
Yeah.
But whenever that happens, it's never a good sign for the defense.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure. I was trying to just wrap my mind around the complaint and the charts that they had of who's influencing what. Congratulations for making the Kohberger chart, by the way. Casey Kasem should be congratulating you from the grave. Moving up a notch, it's Jennifer Coffindaffer on the Kohberger Top 40. But it's what's the point? What is the point of saying these people are speaking up and they're raising their opinions, and this is like. And it's kind of my reaction to it. This is how our media works today. This is how people communicate, like it or not.
Well, it was very interesting to me that this media expert, decided to put together, and really it wasn't the media expert, right? It's the media expert, I think, in conjunction with the psychologist about how this sort of relation affects the public and juries and so on and so forth, right? Yeah. So, they do this really elaborate report. You saw the pages of their reference material. And at the end of the day, I was waiting for the boom
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they put together a bunch of nice statistics about media reach, and there was no boom. I wanted to see what the AP has said. I wanted them to put down tweets or other, media communication. If they're going to put me on the chart, by me and by others,
Mm-hmm.
by Mr. Gray, there was no punch. There was
Yeah.
no punch line. It was just these people have the reach, and I think the inference was these would be pro prosecution because one's a law enforcement person and
Mm-hmm.
the other is the attorney for one of the deceased victims.
Yeah.
But they never brought it together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they didn't do that because there's been nothing. What are you going to say?
Yes.
That the facts are that they're saying the facts, they're regurgitating those, or
Yeah.
they're giving professional opinion based on their background and experience, what other information brought to them might mean to the case. They couldn't say anything
I don't know.
without being
Yes.
slanderous.
Yeah, I don't get the point at all of it. It's just, yes, people, I don't know, are they like hoping that we're in some other country where like you can't do those sort of things? Because like this is how it works here.
Yeah, and how about the whole oxymoron of
Mhm.
so many people in some cases, those that are, I guess, believe that Bryan Kohberger is innocent, right? There's a whole group, and it just, now they've named another individual who they think did it. And, it just has so many tentacles. But it's so interesting that they want speech gagged of people who are not insiders to the case
Mm-hmm.
across the board, right? Anybody who, confirms factual information that exists in the case, yet they want the hearing, or they don't want the hearing to go public.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So it's just such an oxymoron. They want to, you would think, just squash all information about the case.
Is this just like kind of we don't have a whole lot to go on here, so we're going to try and attack the media type thing?
I'm so glad you brought that up, Tony, because whenever the facts are strong in a case, it was always such a great thing to see being on these prosecution teams. We knew what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the defense obviously is going to go for any technicality they can possibly find.
Yeah.
And then in addition to that, they're going to send up, the mud against the wall and see what sticks with completely, information that really is not impactful to the facts of the case.
Yeah. It's just very bizarre, but I guess when you don't have much to go with, you got to figure out something. What's your take on this? Because I think to the average person out there, it seems absurd if you ask somebody, well, where were you on a specific night, especially a night where a murder took place and you're accused of doing it, and you've been accused now for almost half a year. It'd be fairly easy to figure out what you did on that night for your alibi, if you have one. Why are they asking for more time to respond to the prosecutor's request for an alibi?
They don't have an alibi. If they had an alibi, Tony, I submit that they would have gotten their client. He would not be sitting in jail right now for months and months and months. It would have been tendered. This is a situation where I don't believe one exists. Perhaps they're trying to work on some sort of, information, and they haven't put one together yet. But, this would be, as a defense team, this is the first thing you would do.
Yeah.
Is if there were an alibi, you would be putting that front and center. You would be working day and night to make sure you got the details of the alibi out there so that you could get your client not to be sitting in jail. So I think that's what we're looking at, Tony. Again, just,
It just feels like an obvious like sign of guilt where it's like, well, we need a couple more weeks to figure out what he did that night, or tell us, like, you could figure this out in like 5 minutes and share your story if you had nothing to do with this.
Right, because you're being accused of this. this horrific crime happened right in your backyard, 8 miles away, you would know what you did.
Yeah.
This is, like where you were when, for those who were alive, when John F. Kennedy was shot or when the space shuttle went down. I mean, this is a huge moment, especially if you're being accused of it. So, I thought it looked bad. I really do. I think they should have just been honest and said, we're not tendering an alibi. To me, it just called more attention to this shuffle that seems to be happening.
This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast.
The Hidden Killers Podcast.
With Tony Bruschi.
Hey, thank you, Jennifer Coffindaffer, retired FBI special agent. Always very fascinating to get your insight on all of this stuff. Hey, if you want an ad-free experience of our podcast and get access to all of our true crime podcasts and the True Crime Today family, you can do that through Apple Podcasts. Check it out right now. Even try it for 3 days free on Apple Podcasts exclusively. Do check that out. I'm Tony Bruschi. Stay with us.